UK, so not too far from Birmingham, where Paady is from. And my passions, when I'm not running around after my 4 children, is football. My beloved Liverpool FC. They did well last year, not so well this year, and occasionally I like to dabble on the guitar as well. So that's a bit about me. And professionally, my background is in business analysis, agile, business architecture, those kind of things. And that's kind of how Paady and I met. We crossed paths through the IIBA events around business analysis, and we discovered we had this kind of shared interest in visual thinking, and that's kind of what led us to kind of get together and collaborate on visual thinking and do this talk. So Paady, over to you.
Thanks, Grant. So although my name's Pardeep, but everyone calls me Paady, so it's only my mum that calls me Pardeep, and that's usually when I'm in trouble. And so I'm also a father. I have 2 children. They're not blonde. And I also run a podcast called the Peaky Agilist. So I'm very passionate about Agile, and I head up it's the largest training organization within the UK, a company called QA. I head up the Agile practices for QA by day. And I'm Punjabi. And I have to say, I don't think Grant realizes it, but I think Grant is Punjabi too, or he was at least Punjabi in his last life, because he's constantly asking me for Punjabi music and Punjabi food. And in terms of sort of Grant and I, we've recently been accredited as trainers for Bureau Brand, and you can see Bureau Brand on this slide. So we'll be running lots of training for Bureau Brand across different geographies, so we're really excited about that. And the other sort of initiative that we've launched since the summer of last year, and you'll see it on our backdrops, is called the Visual Jam. That's a global meetup that we run where we play lots of Bhangra music and we do lots of visual thinking. And I can see Sharu's hand going up. I think we've definitely crossed paths on that one. So we would welcome you guys to join us on future sessions. So at each stage of our sort of heroine's journey, we'll be pausing and reflecting on how visual thinking will help her overcome some of the challenges ahead of her. And I think visual thinking is a little bit like agile. So it's a very broad sort of label or category. And then within, just like we have within agile, we have different frameworks like Scrum, Kanban, etc. Within visual thinking, there are different specialisms. And so our colleagues at Bureau Brand have defined these 5 different types of visual thinking. And so we'll be touching upon each of these as we go along, just to bring them to life, to showcase what do we mean by a visual co-creator or a visual reporter, etc. And each of us, as we go through our sort of visual thinking journey, hopefully we'll all fall into one or more of these visual thinking types. Maybe not all of them, but I'm pretty sure if you use visual thinking, you'll be in one of these 5 different categories.
Excellent, thanks Paady. So let's meet our hero, Preeti, the product owner. So as I've already said, Preeti is a former business analyst who's transitioned into the PO role, but what we're doing here is we're using a visual persona to help us connect a bit more closely with our character for you guys to understand her background and where she wants to go. So Preeti's big passion is travel. She has a passion to travel the world, and she's really excited because she's just managed to start a new role as a product owner in a company called Bullring Travel. Bullring's an area in Birmingham. And yeah, although Preeti is born and bred in Birmingham, she's got sort of strong ties to her cultural heritage, and like Paady and I, she loves Bhangra. In terms of where Preeti wants to get to, she recognises that she's come from a very IT-oriented, detailed business analysis role, and she wants to step up and learn more about the strategic aspects of the PO role, so that she can actually make a difference and create innovative travel solutions. So that's our hero or heroine.
And so, as we can see on the screen on the right-hand side, we've tried to identify a couple of the different visual thinking types that we've used in this example. So often when teams come together and they want to facilitate conversations, we can use a visual canvas like this. And that's often where someone's playing more of a visual co-creator role. And then if we want to then take the outputs from that type of session and we want to digitize them in this way where we've then tidied them up and we want to present them in a nice digital format, this is where someone who's more of a visual designer would take those outputs and formulate them into a nice lovely visual like this.
Excellent.
So over to you, Grant.
So because Preeti's new to the product owner role, she decides that she wants to go on a training course. She wants to learn more about the roles and competencies that she's going to need to advance her career. So Paady is now going to play the role of Preeti's trainer, and Paady is going to use some visuals to help train Preeti on product ownership.
Great. So if I can ask folks in the chat just to sort of put through any responsibilities that you feel a product owner should have. So what are some of the key responsibilities of a product owner? And if you could just note them in the chat for us, that would be awesome. And then we'll have a quick glance at those. So what are product owners often doing? I'm just going to unshare my screen for a second, just so I can see the chat.
In the roadmap we've got, ordering the backlog.
Oh yeah, great. Actually, Grant, yeah, if you could just kind of read them out for me.
Yeah, that's fine, Paady.
Yeah, great.
Elucidating goals and requirements, setting the vision, refining the backlog. I think that's it so far, Paady, but we've got a few things there around the vision, the backlog, ordering the requirements, creating a roadmap, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. So we've taken these from a great book called The Professional Product Owner, and these are just some of the sort of responsibilities and areas of expertise that we expect product owners to have. So yeah, we've got visioning in here, decision-making, domain knowledge, accountability. That's often an interesting one for product owners. So as we can see, there are lots of demands on a product owner. And so Preeti sort of realizes this, and it's quite a scary role, I guess, if you're going into it for the first time. And so during Preeti's training, she's introduced to the sort of 5 different role types of product ownership. Again, these are taken from the Professional Product Owner book. And then we can see here from the left to right, the sort of increasing levels of influence that a product owner might have. So we can see that if someone's categorized as more of a scribe, they're probably going to be heavily involved with a delivery team, but they're not going to have much involvement in terms of visioning and decision making. And that's why we've got these kind of gray boxes. So we can see the darker boxes are representing the skills that we would have more of, and it goes all the way through to entrepreneur. And so Preeti sort of goes through these different types, and she's able to self-reflect to say, well, where does she feel she is on this scale? And what she finds is she's predominantly between the scribe and the proxy. And so she's now determined to use the power of visual thinking to help her move further to the right of this scale.
Excellent. Thanks, Paady. So I think in this section, what we've seen is Preeti's trainer has used the visual thinking element to help Preeti understand where she is, to help her self-reflect. And using structures in this way to help you kind of see where you position yourself is kind of drawing into that visual analyst skill set. Okay. So as Preeti's journey continues, she starts to become more experienced as a product owner. And she actually looks at other people within her organization, and she kind of spots some bad product owner behavior. So she doesn't want to fall into that trap. And so she decides to go along to a conference where it just so happens to be a talk about the pitfalls of product ownership. So Preeti decides to attend that so she can get more in-depth understanding of what's required of her and how to avoid the common pitfalls of product ownership. And while she's at the conference, there's a graphic recorder who is capturing the essence of the talk. So Paady is going to talk us through what the talk was about, and then you can kind of see here the graphic recorder's output of that talk.
Yeah, so if we think about the Scrum Guide tells us that the product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team. And it also says for product owners to succeed, the entire organization must respect their decisions. So with all of that accountability, what we sort of see is some product owners, that power gets to their head, and they can often fall into this trap of what we call the God complex. So yes, it's a real thing, the God complex. And it's often where someone is so intent on their opinions being correct, even when they're wrong, they just don't want to admit they're wrong. And we often see this in the medical profession. And so me being a fellow Indian, and you hopefully can all resonate with this, will often, sort of trust our doctors to often sort of have all of the answers to things. And so no matter what they say, we totally believe them. And so for product owners to have this type of thinking can be quite dangerous. And so if we look at something like the wisdom of crowds, and there was a really great story in the early 1900s where an English scientist called Francis Galton, he wanted to prove that democracy of crowds was a bad thing. So he would visit, back then in the UK, livestock fairs. And that was where they used to have these contests where villagers would come together and they would have to guess the weight of an ox. So as we can see on the visual, we've got this ox on some scales. And the idea was that the closest guess would win the ox. So if you imagine that, you turn up to a conference or an event and you go home with an ox, that would be pretty cool. We're not going to do that today. But what he found was often sort of, over hundreds of people would attend these events, like, for 500-600 people would be there. And what he found, well, what he would do would be he would collect up all of the tickets afterwards to see, how many people were actually close to the weight. Now, he'd find that most people were wrong and they wouldn't actually guess the weight correctly. However, when he summed up all of the guesses and averaged them out, often they were just 1 pound out from the actual weight. So what he found was having a crowd of people that were diverse, they were independent, and they weren't coerced by other people, often come up with really accurate results. And there's been lots of research done into this where SMEs and experts have been brought together to apply their knowledge and make estimates on things, and they've often been completely wrong. And so if you think about Agile and some of the events in Scrum, like estimation, no wonder we try to bring in as many diverse sort of experiences and perspectives. So wisdom of crowds is a great thing, and that's something that Preeti learned. The other sort of item here on the visual recording poster was around leadership in agility. So there's a great piece of research done by a guy called Bill Joyner in a book called Leadership Agility. And Bill Joyner, he did lots of research across many different leaders to understand what is the best style of leadership in the agile world, and in a world where there's lots of uncertainty, where there's lots of complexity and a fast-paced environment. What he found was the best type of leader that's suited to that environment is what we call the catalyst leader. It's someone who embraces ideas from others, someone who doesn't act like the subject matter expert, and they genuinely bring the ideas of everybody together. But the worrying thing about this research was only 10% of his research population actually demonstrated they had this type of leadership style. So that's a little bit worrying. And then if we look at sort of some of the companies, the well-known companies and organizations that hopefully we're all familiar with, so the likes of YouTube, Twitter, Play-Doh, these are all examples of where organizations have had to pivot over time, and they've had to pivot and change direction quite substantially in order to survive and grow. So I won't talk about what they pivoted from, but there's a few clues on this slide, and I'll let you guys digest that in your own time, or even Google it. So some really interesting lessons learned for Preety.
Thanks, Paddy. So I think in terms of how visuals have been used in this aspect, the visual angle here is the graphic recorder who's captured the essence of the talk. So when we're capturing information in this way, we're acting as visual reporters. We're translating the message, the verbal information that we receive into visual summaries so we can get to the core of a story, or to help us understand and remember it better, so by producing just some memorable visuals. And there's also an element here when we take visuals and metaphors, so our blindfolded product owner walking across a precarious bridge tries to kind of bring across this idea of the pitfalls you could encounter to get to your destination. So that's the visual storyteller angle. That's using metaphor and visual imagery to get you to connect on a more human level to the message that's been described. So those are the kind of two areas that are at play in terms of visual thinking here.
So if we think about many of us, and some of us who haven't been drawing for a long time and being creative, we can often sort of depict our visual journey in this way, or our creativity journey in this way. So we find that during our early years, we are really visual. We do lots of drawing, lots of doodling. So between those sort of ages of 3 to 10, and if anyone has children, you'll see this in your own kids. And then what ends up happening is as we start to embark upon a career, we tend to sort of lose that creativity. And so it kind of dips. And then maybe later on, when we're getting bored in our kind of retirement years, we might take up a hobby like painting or something. Whereas if we compare that to our confidence in writing, our writing confidence exponentially increases and stays at a level, that high level all the way through our sort of careers and our lives. So Preety learned that in order to succeed, she can't go it alone, and she needs to empower her team and find ways to harness that kind of diversity, that wisdom and creativity. And so she appreciates visual thinking is a real superpower, but she has this syndrome called ICD, I can't draw syndrome, because she follows this sort of pattern herself. And so she wants to take her visual thinking skills to the next level. So the great thing is Preety gets the perfect opportunity to test out these skills, because her CEO from Bullring Travel asked her to take the lead role as the product owner for a new innovative project that aims to diversify Bullring Travel's traditional offerings in response to the global pandemic that we're in at the moment. So in order to get everyone on the same page, Preety decides to turn the CEO's vision, which you can see on this slide, to turn it into a visual poster that will quickly and clearly communicate the strategic intent, and also get everybody behind the vision. So I'll just give you guys a moment just to soak in some of the keywords on this slide in terms of the vision. So we've got things like finding innovative ways to respond. Our goal is to bring the travel experience to people's front door. We want people to smell the tulip fields of the Netherlands, taste the stone-baked pizzas of Italy, and hear the rhythms of Brazil, and be able to provide a virtual experience. So here's some really key words that are kind of coming out at Preety, and she wants to try and visualize all of this great stuff.
Now, Preeti's still relatively new in her visual thinking journey. So she's got this idea. She wants to create this visual poster. She understands the theory. She thinks it'd be great to do this, but she's still a bit worried about how her team might react. You know, she's not the best drawer. She's not the most confident drawer. But then she remembers she read Mike Rodey's Sketchnoting handbook, and that talked about ideas, not art. And the idea being that, you know, we're in visual thinking in a business context is about being able to convey ideas, and it's not really about being able to produce a fine piece of art. So she recognizes this, she repeats the mantra, ideas, not art, and she thinks, right, I'm going to give this a go. Okay, so I'm now going to pretend to be Preety, and I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to invite you guys to draw along with me live. And this is the bit that can go horribly wrong, but we'll see how we get on.
Grab your pens and a bit of paper and draw along with Grant, because this will be quite good fun.
Okay, guys, can you see this, Paady? Is that a good size?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good stuff. Right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sketch a version of what Preety could have drawn for that visual. And I'm going to ask for Paaddy's help to remind us as we go through of some of the key points and messages. But I think the first thing we spoke about, and Paady and I have obviously had a chat about this before, is we're going to talk about the idea of homes being connected and travel coming to the home. So that's kind of in our mind's eye. That's what we're aiming for. So we're going to start by drawing a home. We're going to do a simple shape that looks like a house. So you guys all draw that, 2 straight lines with a open triangle on top. And then I'm gonna give it some windows. Here and here. And then I'm going to deliberately give this one a door that's this shape, because this house is going to be a bit unhappy. Okay. And this, I'm going to give this house a bit of character now. So I'm going to put a little couple of dots up here so they've got eyes. They're looking up at something that's worried them, and their eyebrows are reflecting the fact that they're a bit concerned. And then I'm just going to give them a little hand and just gesturing. And the reason they're worried is because there's a big virus. So I'm going to draw a circle, and as I go, I'm going to pop in these COVID-19 sort of, I don't know what they call these things, but I'm going to draw a virus.
Oh, virus tentacles, I think. Grant.
Tentacles. That'll do, Paady. So there you go. We've got our virus that's kind of looming over our house and making them worried. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to change colours of my pen, but it doesn't matter for your purposes. You can still follow along. I'm just going to draw behind this sort of the suggestion of a circle behind. And what I want this to be is I want it to be the earth kind of sat covered by the virus. So it's almost like the virus is preventing this household from getting out and seeing the world. Okay? And I'm going to jump back and I'm going to paint the picture, hopefully.
And while you are jumping, Grant, just a reminder, the last 15 minutes.
That's fine, thank you. So now I'm going to try and draw a happier place. So I've got a house down here. Same principle. We're just going to draw the shape of a house. This one, though, we're going to change the shape slightly. So I'm going to go for slightly different shaped windows. And this one's going to be looking up at something. And they happen to have a door that looks incredibly like a smiley face there. And their eyebrows are raised, but not in a concerned or worried way. And I'm just going to give a bit of kind of grass at the bottom of that house. And then this one is holding a flag. And this is the point, Paddy, where I realised that I haven't got my coloured pens nation. And this is a flag of the Netherlands with the red and blue and white, because this is the character that is experiencing the smell of tulips. So they're holding on to a bunch of flowers. And to draw a tulip, we're just going to do this kind of shape. Do the same the other way, and one in the middle. Kind of like that. And then to do a bunch of tulips, we're just going to imagine there's another one behind here, and another one behind here. And that's enough to show that this person's experiencing the tulips of Amsterdam. Okay. Then I'm going to put another house up here. And with this, Paddy, if you can just keep an eye on the time for me. If we do run over a little bit, we have got one we prepared earlier in case I run out of time. So I'm going to leave a gap here, and you'll see why in a second. So this house is going to, again, be a happy looking house, and you can probably guess where I'm going with some of this now. This one is also happy. I forgot to give my house as chimneys. Do you think that matters? That one's going to have a chimney.
It depends which country, Grant.
Maybe, yeah. So this one is going to be in Italy, because they're the ones that are going to enjoy the pizzas, the stone-baked pizzas of Italy. And I don't know why, when I think of Italy, I think of, it's probably Mario, isn't it, that's inspiring me to do this kind of Italian-style moustache. I don't know.
I used to have one of those. My wife,
yeah, you did that.
My wife got scared.
So this one's holding the flag, and again, you're going to have to use your imagination for me here, because this is the Italian flag, and the stripes go this way. What is it? I can't remember what the colours are now. Red, green, and white, I think.
Green, white, and red from left to right.
Perfect. There you go. Now, we want to draw this Italian household, or this household enjoying the experience of Italy, enjoying a nice stone-baked pizza. So we're going to draw an oval like so. It's our pizza. Maybe just do a little line there to show the edge of the pizza. And then the most obvious thing to make it look like a pizza is to put some pepperoni or something on there. Maybe a few peppers, that kind of thing. And this is a hot pizza, so we've got some steam coming off it there. And if we just draw a little line there for their hands, suggest they're just holding on to the bottom of the pizza dish there. And our last house, which is really happy, I'm going to do this one slightly differently. I'm going to go for a more curvy house. I'm going to try and make this one a bit more female. So this house has got some curves going on. And I'm going to do their eyes a bit different. Their eyes are going to be these kind of curved windows. And because it's a female,
we're into the last 10 minutes.
Perfect, Paddy, thank you. We're going to give them some eyelashes. They're looking across to see what's going on with the guys here. They've got a happy, smiley face as well, but maybe even give them some lips, okay? And this one is going to be holding the flag of Brazil. So that's a circle with a diamond, I think, something like that. And because they're in Brazil, then they're going to be holding some maracas and shaking those maracas. So a couple of circles, just a little ridge there, and then just imagine it's passing through their hand at the bottom of the maracas, and a couple of lines to show that they're shaking those maracas and having fun like they do in Brazil. Okay, and then for the head of this house, again, I've given them the same sort of head, but because this is Brazil and it's carnival, we're gonna give them a feathered headdress. So draw a shape like this as a feather, and then you just kind of repeat it, but start behind the other one. Something like this, doesn't have to be perfect. And then the same this way. Just do a few lines, just to suggest that they're feathers. We'll have a couple of music symbols going on. And they're enjoying the samba vibe in Brazil. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show up here, and hopefully we can finish this in time. This is our organization. So I'm going to draw a couple of rectangles like this, just lines to represent windows on an office building, nothing too complicated there, and you've got a simple building. And to be clear who we're talking about, I'm going to put the name of the company up here. So that's Boring Travel, okay. And just to make it a bit kind of more interesting and playful, I'm going to do some bull horns, the bull ring. And then what we want to do here is we want to try and show Boring Travel, bring in the connectivity. So I'm going to draw a cloud, something like this, and I'm going to connect the cloud kind of with this visual, something like that, where it's like a node connecting to the house. Something like this. And so now you can see that these houses are all connected through Boring Travel, and Boring Travel are taking the idea of a travel experience. So all these places on the other side of the world that we can't get to because of the virus, they've been made available through Boring Travel actually to the rest of these guys. And I think if I had a bit more time, I might want to kind of show some kind of connection between these because they're interacting and sharing their experience. And the CEO was talking about, what was the phrase? It was bringing
travel experience to the comfort of your own home.
Not perfect, thanks, Paady. Bringing the travel experience to the, bit of a long one, comfort of your, we'll do a different style to emphasize home. And what we've got there is structure. I've run out of time a little bit, so I'm rushing at the end there, but you get the idea. You can encapsulate what's going on here in a message. And then what you can do to kind of connect it, you can just do a simple visual border. I'm going to use a different pen for that. Just to be quicker and don't bleed as much. Where you can just kind of now frame your visual poster. And you've got a nice kind of visual representation. Now I've done that a bit quick and a bit rough and ready because I've had to rush with the time limit, but hopefully that gives you a sense of how you can, through simple shapes, build up quite a nice visual experience. So Paady, if I can hand over back to you to pick back up the slides and we can get on the home straight. Hopefully you managed to follow that okay though, guys.
Okay, folks. No worries. I'm just going to say, obviously we're running out of time. So what we were going to say was if there are questions, please do put them in the chat and Grant and I will answer them offline because I think we're probably not going to get time to cover them right now, but we will answer them.
Okay, I've lost my train of thought. Where were we? Yes, so I think that's kind of brought us to the point now where Paady has used her visual designer and visual storytelling skills to paint the picture of the CEO's vision, hopefully in a way that her team can better connect with and see the spirit of what boring travel trying to achieve through connectivity of the travel experience to the home. Now she's really pleased with kind of how it turned out, and she's energized to take her visual thinking journey further. Now, as Paady says, we don't have time to kind of talk through where Paady went on her journey next, but what we can do is we can share some of what Paady and I have done in our experience and how we've applied visual thinking as we've gone along. Okay. So we're going to walk through some different examples now. So you can use visual thinking for sketchnoting. So here's a bunch of sketch notes that have been produced at different talks, and this, that kind of graphic recording, visual reporter, and helping you remember and learn. You move to the next one, Paady. These visuals are more in the visual designer space, creating a poster to try and get a message across. So the one on the left, a visual terms of reference for a business analysis practice and what their remit is. The one on the right, a visual to try and promote a BA community conference and drive up engagement within the BA community within Sky. These visuals are trying to show that it's not just about using visuals to create pretty sketch notes or posters. Visual thinking can have a real practical application to when you're analysing things. So if you're exploring how a system should work, if you're framing the context for an agile delivery, you're solving complex rules around problems in user stories that you're looking to build, you're trying to explain different concepts, clarify acceptance criteria. Visuals can be used at that more granular level to be practical as well as engaging. And the last one from me, visuals can also be used to help explain things. So the visual on the left is an explanation of how to prepare for a sketchnoting event. So I use that simple visual cue to help explain to people how they should approach a sketchnoting event themselves. The one on the right there is more about using a visual template to facilitate a discussion. So you can use these for retrospectives. This is one that Paady and I did for our first visual jam, where we wanted to engage the group and ask them to say, where do you want to take the visual jam? What do you want to see us cover in the meetup? Okay, and then Paady, do you want to talk us through the rest of them?
Yeah, I'll rush through this. I know we're running out later. Monica's giving me the look. So this is just another sketch note that I did for our family. It was for my sister-in-law's 50th birthday, just as a little present for her. So you can summarize and depict, I guess, different characteristics in a visual way. I do a lot of agile training for teams. So I use a lot of metaphors. So those of us that are agilists will be familiar with invest. And I use the example of a cup of tea to explain invest. So that's just my way of doing it. And just to show you, everyone can do it. We can all do this. Like, don't be scared of it. Like, this is my daughter. I gave her some very simple instructions, a couple of quick techniques, and she came up with a nice poster, a flip chart poster. So everyone can do it. And finally, just to say, we'd love for you guys to join us on the Visual Jam. I'm going to post some links in the chat very, very quickly. And we've also created a little a little booklet for you guys as well on the product ownership assessment that we mentioned earlier. So if you join our mailing list, then we will send that over to you. So I'll just post that in the chat. And on that note, Monica, I'm going to stop and thank you so much for having us here today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Wow.
Thanks, guys.